59.
Welcome to the Service Game, where serve starts the story. I'm your host, IVJ, and in today's episode, I will be talking about the second week to the Miami Open. So yeah, let's just get right into our first segment, the toss. So the main news I want to discuss is two top 10 players on the WTA, the women's tour side, have announced that they will be parting ways with their respective coaches. So the first one is Amanda Anisimova, and she decided to part ways with her coach of 2 years. With her coach, they have won 2 1000s tournaments, which is the tournament with the most points. And with her coach, they also made back-to-back Grand Slam finals, as well as reaching the world number 3 ranking. And in my opinion, this wasn't a really sort of expected part ways, because even though Anisimova's season wasn't as sort of what she was expecting because she had such an amazing season last year, I still feel like this was just kind of out of the blue, and I'm interested to see who she will be partnering next. Okay. The second part ways I want to talk about is the former world number 1 and now the world number 3, Iga Swiatek, who part ways with her coach Wim Fisette. And I think their biggest accomplishment was winning Wimbledon together. And in her statement, she said that the rest of her team will remain unchanged, and I think that's a nod to a lot of people saying that she should be parting ways with her psychologist. They've been working together for a long time now, and in a match, you can clearly tell that the conflict is when she talks with her psychologist. There are a lot of shouting back and forth with her compared to her sort of like shouting back and forth with her former coach Wim Fisette. In my opinion, this was sort of expected because she did lose in the first round of Miami. But I think the problem, even though Wim Fisette maybe isn't the best coach for her, I think the problem isn't necessarily the coach, but it's sort of just the inner workings of her team, because that dynamic with her psychologist isn't healthy. And I'm not suggesting that she should part ways with her psychologist, but I think the problem isn't the coach here.
It's a huge moment in the career of Sebastian Korda.
That's the sound of Sebastian Korda beating Alcaraz in Miami. Welcome to the hit. So we are going to talk about 2 matches on the men's side following 2 matches on the women's side that I think are worth looking back on. So as I said, the men's side, the first match I want to discuss is Sebastian Korda, who beat Carlos Alcaraz with a score of 6-3, 5-7, 6-4. I think to talk about Korda first, there was a lot of hype around him around 2022, but I think he has been bothered by injury. But from this match, you can clearly tell that he's so talented. I think one of his weaknesses is definitely his serve, but over time, especially this season, I feel like it has improved a lot, and he sort of copied what Daniil Medvedev did in Indian Wells to beat Alcaraz, which is a tournament right before this. And yeah, he just stepped up on his serve, and sort of Medvedev carved a blueprint out on how to beat Alcaraz. But at the same time, I think Alcaraz definitely hit a wall after winning so many matches. I know he did lose to Medvedev in Indian Wells, but just winning so many matches, obviously in Australia where he was the Grand Slam champion, and so much hype around him, and winning like the Middle East tournaments, just completely dominating, and then coming to the Golden Swing, which is Indian Wells and Miami, was clearly a lot. And you can kind of tell from the beginning of this match that he wasn't in his like steady mode of just winning points, but he was sort of just pulling magic tricks. Like, he's playing tennis of just like making ridiculous shots, and in that mode I feel like it's kind of hard for him to win in a way that's sort of dominant, and that's what we've been seeing from Alcaraz in this season so far. But also at the same time, I want to give props to Korda because he got it done in 3 after failing to serve it out in the second. I think that after he lost in the second set, I thought that would be it and Alcaraz will definitely win. But actually, he proved me wrong, and yeah, it was a fantastic match. The second match I want to talk about, I think, is definitely one of the matches of the year contender. So it was between Tommy Paul versus Arthur Fils, and Arthur Fils won with a score of 4-6, 7-6, 7-6, saving 4 consecutive match points. And for those of you guys who need a reminder, match points is the point where if your opponent wins the next point, they win the entire match. So there was an article written by Matt Futterman in The Athletic that I really, really enjoyed that talked about just Arthur Fils' comeback. I will be leaving a link in the show notes if you guys want to go check it out. This match just had a lovely vibe to it. And more than the vibe, the content, the rallies were incredible. So in the deciding set tiebreak, so tiebreak is basically when a player needs to win 7 points to win the set when it's tied 6-6 in a game. So yeah, and Fils saved 4 consecutive match points. As I mentioned before, he was down 2-6, and I think throughout this game, the game plan for Tommy Paul was just to stay in the rally and wait for Fils to make a mistake. And when Fils was down 2-6, he still blasted the ball and all of them just landed right on the line. However, when it was down to the crucial moments in the last few points after he saved the match points, he sort of beat Tommy Paul at his own game by just rallying, and eventually Paul made a mistake. So yeah, this was definitely such an incredible match, and I really do recommend you guys checking it out. And that is the sound of Aryna Sabalenka, who successfully defended her Miami title from last year and completed this year's Sunshine Double by winning Indian Wells and Miami. And she's the first player to do so since 2022. This sort of leads me to the first match I want to talk about, which is the final of Miami between Aryna Sabalenka and Coco Gauff. Sabalenka won this match with the score of 6-2, 4-6, and 6-3. And I think this is really a huge confidence boost for her because I think she does have an interesting matchup problem against Coco Gauff because they've played in 2 Grand Slam finals now where Sabalenka almost had it in the bag, and Coco Gauff's way of just getting every ball back really frustrated Sabalenka, causing her to lose that match and the Grand Slam. So I think this was such like a reversal, and it proved to her that she's able to beat Coco Gauff. And because after she lost the second set 4-6, especially with the really extremely one-sided crowd who's all cheering for Coco Gauff, she kept herself together and she managed to win. And throughout this tournament also, she also beat Elena Rybakina, which is another player that I think she has a mental block against because this year in Australia Grand Slam final, she did lose to Rybakina, sort of in a similar fashion, I would say, to the way she sometimes will lose to Coco Gauff in the other finals. So this sort of was her revenge tour, like a revenge tournament. And yeah, I just really liked how she managed to stay focused despite losing the second set, and she was determined to not let history repeat itself again. And I also want to talk about Coco because I think her form improved tremendously since the Middle East tournament, and in Indian Wells she withdrew because of a shoulder problem, and we've really never seen Coco withdrew from a match. She's not known as a player who would just withdraw mid-match. So I'm really happy that her shoulder is okay. And yeah, to make it to the final of this tournament is already a pretty incredible accomplishment, considering that she hasn't really done that well in Middle East. Sometimes I believe in Dubai she lost the first round, and here she's making it to the final, so you can clearly see her progression. And the second match I want to talk about is the match between Victoria Mboko and Karolina Muchova. So Muchova won this in 2 straight sets, but I think this is definitely one of the best match of this tournament. So I want to talk about Mboko first. Mboko, I think, is really making consistent efforts at going deep in tournaments. So she is consistently making it to, like, let's say the quarterfinals or the finals of tournaments. So let's start off with her first tournament this season. So her first tournament this season was in Adelaide, where she made it to the final. And in Australia, she made it to the 4th round, where she lost to Sabalenka. In Qatar, she also made it to the final. In Indian Wells, she made it to the quarters, and here she also made it to the quarters. So you can tell that she has a consistent result over the weeks. And yeah, however, I also want to talk about Muchova, because Muchova now has a record this season of 18-3. So she won 18 matches and lost only 3. And I think this match just demonstrated how good Muchova is when she's not injured, because she really used a lot of her volley skills and just her hands with some balls that are more technical, and that kind of, I think, caught Mboko off guard, just because she's such a new player to the tour. And yeah, I mean, they also played in Doha, where Muchova won in 2 straight sets, but I think Mboko definitely played much better here. And I just want to say that I really, really enjoyed this match. Welcome to the follow-through, and we're going to recap some of the tennis actions that will happen. So first, I want to talk about the Miami men's final that will be taking place today. So as I'm recording this on a Sunday, the Miami men's final will take place today at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So it's going to be between Jannik Sinner and Jiri Lehecka. Lehecka beat Fies with a score of 6-2, 6-2 in the semifinals, but I think Sinner will definitely win this one. And in terms of tennis action next week, on the women's side, we have the Charleston Open that will be taking place on Monday. The defending champion is Jessica Pegula. We also have players like Madison Keys, Iva Jovic, Belinda Bencic. And for the men's side, there is the Houston 250 tournaments that will also be taking place on Monday. And we have players, a lot of the US players, Ben Shelton, Tommy Paul, Tiafoe, etc. And I'm also really excited for the first Masters 1000 tournaments. On the men's side, that's going to be the clay debut. We're getting closer to the clay season now. And we have Monte Carlo with Carlos Alcaraz as the defending champion. Thank you so much for listening, and please subscribe wherever you're listening. I also want to end off with a fun fact and a poll that you guys can vote in the show notes. So first, the fun fact. So a tennis bracelet, which is this bracelet that a lot of people wear, that's pretty expensive. It was actually a term that was coined in 1987 when Chris Evert, one of the best tennis players ever, lost her diamond bracelet during a US Open match and requested to pause play to find it. And that's how it became so popular. And in terms of the poll, please vote if you think you are an aggressive baseliner or counter puncher. So aggressive baseliner is someone who will just blast a ball on the baselines, and then a counter puncher is someone who sort of uses their opponent's power to also just more slices and more volleys. And if you guys don't play tennis, just think about, if you were a tennis player, which one of these would you be? But yeah, please remember to rate my show. It really helps a lot. and I'll see you guys next week. Let the serves continue. Bye.